This is Trend Following Radio, where great thinking comes alive. Nobel Prize winners, legendary traders, best-selling authors, and the pros that know what drive us irrational human beings. I am your host, Michael Covel. Not filtered, raw, honest. That's my passion. Jim Quinn has a blog called The Burning Platform. Some people might say, wow, it's really hardcore. Other people might say, it really hits the mark. I think it really hits the mark. I tried to get Jim to be on my podcast, and he politely deferred. He basically said, I just don't really do interviews. He's very nice about it. I said, Jim, can I use your blog post? Can I read it? I want to read this. He has some fantastic writing. I'm about to read it. He gave me permission to read this. And even if you disagree, boy, does this man have a way with the pen. Boy, does he connect the dots. I give all the applause. This episode of his blog that I want to read is called Trying to Stay Sane in an Insane World, which is a fantastic way to think about my world, the trend following world. Because trend following is a fantastic way to stay sane in an insane world. But before I ruin Jim's writing with my pontification, I want to go ahead, and this is not every last word of the post, but what I'm going to read is verbatim. And I picked just, I think it's about 3/4 of his blog post. You can read it all online at The Burning Platform. But let me go ahead and just start this. Bernanke's wealth effect theory is a charade. He has backed the country into a corner with no escape for the prisoners of his QE prison. He'll escape to collect his Wall Street paycheck in January, of course. He knows that without the combined $300 billion per month being pumped into the veins of zombie U.S., European, Japanese, and solvent zombie banks by the central bankers, the worldwide financial system will implode. He blathers on about tapering while awaiting the next government manufactured crisis to give him an excuse to continue or increase his money printing exercise. Control P is the only key on Benny's laptop. To think dropping trillions of dollars into the laps of Wall Street will somehow stimulate Main Street is beyond laughable. Some ideas are so ridiculous that only intellectuals and academics could possibly believe them. Shockingly, those who profited from the actions of Bernanke, Obama, Congress, and the U.S. Treasury are the very same predators that created the financial disaster and prompted the emergency response in the first place. QE to infinity has not been a failure. It has done exactly what it was designed to do. In September 2008, every major Wall Street bank was insolvent. Orderly bankruptcy under existing law was the solution. The richest, most powerful men in the world would have seen vast amounts of their illicitly acquired wealth vaporized. Hundreds of billions in bad debt would have been written off with no lasting impact on the average American. A brief, violent depression would have ensued, but with the bad debt purged from the system and only prudent, sensible bankers left, the economy would have rapidly recovered. Instead, a small cadre of financial elite hatched a plan to preserve their ill-gotten gains through accounting fraud and manipulation of monetary and fiscal policy. You'd have to be blind, deaf, and dumb to not realize who Bernanke is really working for. But it seems the majority of the people in this country don't care, don't understand, or don't want to know the truth. As long as the ATMs keep spitting out $20 bills, there are Cool Ranch Doritos on the shelf at the Piggly Wiggly, and the EBT card gets recharged on the first of the month. The corpulent populace has been so dumbed down by the public educational system, run by social engineers and union teachers, along with the 24/7 corporate media propaganda inundating them since childhood. They're content to stare into their boob tubes, play with their eye gadgets, or read what a friend or a distant relative ate for breakfast on Facebook. The government provides enough welfare handouts to keep the increasingly larger lower classes from rioting by borrowing $1 trillion per year from the future unborn generations. When the middle class shows sign of discontent regarding their declining wages and lack of jobs, the government and the military-industrial complex use the boogeyman of impending terror threats and evil dictators to wage undeclared wars and distract the willfully ignorant masses. Plus, there are always fantasy football leagues, paying $300 to take your family out to watch drug-enhanced millionaire baseball players not run out of ground ball at a $1 billion taxpayer-financed stadium, shopping at a suburban Ghost Mall with one of your 9 credit cards to dull the pain of a meaningless, pathetic life, or watch 8-year-old Huey Booey Boo dress like a whore and parade before adult judges on the Discovery Channel. Our choice to ignore the basic mathematics of our lives has resulted in creating a nation of subhumans wandering through life like zombies in a bad horror movie. And we owe it all to the bankers and politicians that have procured undue influence over the political, economic, and financial mechanisms that control the country. The 2008 financial collapse, systematically created by the pathologically egomaniacal financial elite who are programmed to thrust their vampire squid blood funnels into every potential pot of untapped wealth in the world, should have led the American people to tear down their criminal enterprise and throw the treacherous predators into prison. Instead, the fearful masses begged the Wall Street bankers and the pandering politician flunkies in Washington, D.C. to steal more of their money. The bankers won again. The psychopaths controlling this country have fashioned untenable financial conditions by further weakening an already structurally deficient economic structure that will result in an epic flood of financial destruction destined to destroy the lives of millions in the U.S. and around the globe. Those who put their faith in financialization and interconnected globalization will reap what they have sowed. We will all feast at a banquet of consequences. Encouraging the central bankers across the world to print trillions of fiat currency out of thin air as the solution to our debt problem is the ultimate in idiocracy. The unsustainability of this scheme should be evident to even an Ivy League economist. But the dim-witted government, overeducated economists, greedy corporate executives, vacuous media talking heads, and intellectually dishonest journalists cheer on Ben Bernanke and his central banker brethren. When you see a Bloomberg bimbo interviewing an Ivy League Wall Street economist about the tremendous merits of QE to infinity, you have a millionaire interviewing a multimillionaire, with both working for corporations owned by billionaires. Their jobs depend upon the sustenance and further enrichment of the establishment. Therefore, they will lie, obfuscate, and mislead their audience about the criminality of their bosses and the true consequences of these crimes against humanity. The existing hierarchy will not willingly surrender their control, power, and illegitimately acquired wealth. Only the process of economic collapse, war, and revolution will end their reign of terror. We've seen it all before. The cycles of human history have provided us with centuries of proof that a few evil men can gain control over a civilization and procure an inordinate amount of wealth and power before ultimately relinquishing it due to their myopic, pathological desire to acquire more. Powerful, wealthy narcissists are never satisfied with what they have. Their arrogance and hubris will always be their downfall. Their foolish belief in their own self reveals their true ignorance. Their enormous egos and confidence and the linearity of history blind them to their impending demise. Time is no longer on their side. A reckoning will happen within the next decade. Their gated communities and penthouse doormen will not keep them safe. The American people cannot shirk the responsibility for this ongoing tragedy. The evil man could only pull off this bank heist with the silent consent of the governed. And that's exactly what happened. The American people have been gradually persuaded through propaganda and fear to willingly give up freedom, liberty, and self-responsibility for safety, security, and government-provided sugar. Over the last 40 years, the American people have allowed themselves to be enslaved in debt by bankers, corporations, and politicians who all realized riches while binding the citizens in chains made of credit cards and mortgages. Now that the system has reached its breaking point and further issuances of debt no longer generates the appearance of growth, the ruling class have resorted to more authoritarian measures, all done in the name of protecting us from phantom terrorists and evil dictators. It's for the children. Decisions about our economy are made in secret meetings by unelected officials with sparse details announced with great fanfare by corporate media. The president, with full support of the military-industrial complex, chooses which dictators are evil and which are good, with each being interchangeable depending upon the circumstances. The iron fist of American democracy attacks countries at will, without a declaration of war as mandated by the U.S. Constitution. 2,500 pages, indecipherable reams of regulations, and 60,000 pages of tax code are rammed down the throats of Americans without the benefit of even a debate. Each crisis caused by the previous government's solution is met with more laws and regulations, designed and written by the very entities that they were supposed to control. The farce of party politics is used to give people the appearance of choice, when there's not an iota of policy difference when the opposing party assumes power. The people are told that every situation is too complicated for them to understand, and they should let the experts solve the problems. Every authoritarian measure used to control dissent among those capable of thinking is done in the name of national security. Edward Snowden is declared a traitor for revealing the traitorous actions of our own government, and the people silently consent. The head of the NSA is caught lying to Congress, and no one cares. The Department of Homeland Security locks down one of the biggest cities in America looking for a teenager, and people cower and beg Big Brother for more protection. The NSA and other secretive government agencies treat the Fourth Amendment like toilet paper, and the people feebly respond by breathlessly texting, twittering, and Facebooking about Anthony Weiner's cock. The U.S. military desensitizes the masses by conducting live fire exercises in American cities, and the people change the channel to Bridezilla's or I Didn't Know I Was Pregnant. Each new surprise, each new foreign threat, each new government solution is met with secrecy, spin, and no avenue for the people to impact the decisions made by our owners. The people no longer matter. They can't change the course of the country through legal means or the ballot box because the system has been captured. It has happened before. The American people are under the mistaken impression we are free. That boat has sailed. Our economic, financial, and political systems have been usurped by malicious men posing as gangsters in this saga. We've allowed this to happen. We mistakenly put our trust in bankers, academics, and politicians, and will suffer the consequences of our choices. That was Jim Quinn from The Burning Platform. Some pretty tough writing. I'm trying to find a piece of that I disagree with. I'm really not sure how anybody can disagree with any of it. Tough to read, too. He's a smart guy. This is some fantastically well-done writing. Tough to disagree with. Hits the mark. Now, of course, in my world, if Jim is describing the world accurately, then in my trend-following world, I would say, if that's what we're facing, tell me a solution that's better than trend following. Because he's making the case that this isn't going to end anytime soon. And he's making the case for, frankly, more booms and more busts. Boom bust cycles, bubbles, rising bubbles popping as far as the eye can see. Now, I want to read one quick short excerpt from CBS Market Watch that I think dovetails in nicely to the end of Jim's piece. The brains of Wall Street gurus and the brains of Main Street investors are in a symbiotic relationship, a dance of death. Wall Street gurus know the investor's brain is gullible, easy to manipulate, will ignore facts, historical data, rational judgment, anything to stay optimistic, even when a crash is imminent, obvious, even in progress. It's in our DNA, our brains, it's our nature. Yes, American investors are born optimists. So are Wall Street gurus. Years ago, we did a little research study. Turns out that 93% of the time, Wall Street is bullish. And today, from what we see in the field of behavioral economics, it's also true that the brains of America's 95 million investors are also 93% optimistic. Get it? Americans are inherently optimistic, blind optimists. We dismiss facts, block reality, deny history, crashes, meltdowns. Wall Street gurus do it too. Main Street's 95 million investors buy the spin. We secretly want to be deceived. Even in real bad times, deep inside, we trust in a better future, want the good news, optimism, happy talk, bull markets. We desperately want to forget the harsh reality of the past. So we deny stuff. Wall Street knows this too. So they profile you. Yes, they know you're a sucker for happy talk. Warning. This symbiotic relationship is doomed to repeat forever. And the bubbles will get bigger, and we'll have another bigger meltdown, even another Great Depression. So expect Wall Street and their Washington buddies to just keep feeding sound bites to the media to manipulate the brains of Main Street's investors. It's in their DNA. It's in your brains to trust. Nice writing also. I think that's from Paul Farrell at CBS Market Watch. Right on target. Now, I take both of those excerpts and say, if that's the landscape that we're facing, and I think if we sat down with a room full of Americans, let's say 350 million of them, I think the vast majority of Americans, once they kind of just understood the basics, they would agree with both of these passages. Even if they don't have the power of their own minds to think clearly. Even if they can't sit still and take the right action. Now, I read those two passages, and I think you, the audience, probably agrees with me. Wow, this is what we're facing. I can do well by my family. I can do well for myself. I can help my friends. Because if this boom-bust cycle is here forever, and gosh, I don't know how it's not, there's only one strategy. There's only one strategy that makes any sense, and there's only one strategy that has any proof of success, and that's trend following. Trend following is the strategy that takes advantage of all of these people doing all of these dumb things. Whether it's the politicians and the bankers doing dumb things, or it's the people that blindly follow them. See, it's not about, those are two great pieces of writing that I read, and I respect that writing. But at the end of the day, once you've read it, once you've accepted it, you can't really get upset about it. It is what it is. That's the world. It's not going to change. So what can you do? You could pretend, you can go along, try and be a fundamental guy and think that, it's all something you can figure out via fundamentals. When the fall of 2008 surely proved that fundamentals didn't matter anymore. Once you've got a rigged system, the fundamentals don't matter. So I enjoyed reading those two passages today. They were very inspiring to me. And not inspiring to me that they got me mad or angry or anything like that. They're both very calming pieces, actually, to me. They're kind of just, you sit back and you're like, wow, okay. Those are nice, well-written pieces that just remind you that this is what we're facing. We're going to be in boom busts as far as we can see. Okay, I'm cool with that. I can accept that. What am I going to get worried about it? What am I going to die early because I'm stressed out about it? No, it is what it is. So if it is what it is, and you kind of have you now have the secret key, the code key to kind of, the crypt key to kind of open the door to see how things really work, to look behind the curtain. And I think both of those passages, while there's a little jargon in both of them, and I'm not saying it's necessarily easy to digest all of what they said, especially Jim's piece, which was very, very dense. And you have to have a little insight into economics and how the Fed operates and the money system to truly wrap your arms around it. But still, inspiring. I don't know, in some weird way, I guess I'm excited about When you get those nice reminders and you kind of say, wow, what's the landscape? What's the landscape of society? As a guy that wants to follow trends, who really believes that following trends makes a lot of sense. But though, if you look at every decade, there's different economic factors going on every decade that seemingly build and compound on each other. Obviously, we weren't having the same discussion in the late 1990s. We weren't having the same discussion in the mid-2000s. But now, with the benefit of hindsight, a smart guy like Jim can outline what has happened. Wash, rinse, repeat. Wash, rinse, repeat. And ladies and gentlemen, my fine audience, and I know there's many, many smart people out there, and there's many people that are looking to learn new ways at looking at the world. Just sit back. Say it's a rigged system. People with their own self-interest control certain power reins. They're going to do what they do. And what can you do? What's your best option? What's your best option in the face of all this? Let me just leave you with that thought. What's your best option in the face of all of this? I see a time when those awake will understand how to make money in up, down, and surprise markets. Whether new trader or experienced, college student or financial advisor, protecting against a crash or just trying to make a lot of money, trend following offers everyone an answer in uncertain times. To get started immediately, send me an email, michael@covel.com. I will send you the right trend following steps to take along with my free video. But if you want to buy and hold, trust the government and trust Wall Street, this is absolutely not for you.